I can't tell you how much you've influenced my career.
Oh my gosh. Don't make me cry.
I'm serious.
That makes me so happy. You know why? Because I've dedicated my life to supporting women in their careers. It is so meaningful to me. It's something that is core to my belief. I find women, I seek them out, and so the fact that you've also dedicated yourself to that is so important because it spreads. I'm so grateful that we've been on this journey together.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's a crazy journey.
Yes.
But this is new. So,
I'm so excited.
But I just think back of one conversation you and I had, and it was with my previous CEO. And you were just so insanely strong and empowering when you were said, yes, I've done the CMO work. I'm ready for my CEO job. And I was like, ooh, I want everyone to know exactly what they want to do and know exactly what the next career path looks like. And you've had many, many journeys, so we'll go through it. But I just remember that one moment that you gave me strength to always ask for what I want.
That's it. We're going to talk about that. I'm excited.
Let's do it. So this is our season 1 of Rules to Thrive.
Awesome.
It's a vulnerable thing, right? I know how to do partnerships. I know how to do go-to-market, but this is new. And this has actually been an interesting thing that I haven't been sharing with a lot of people because I don't feel that I'm ready yet. Mm-hmm. So I might need your guidance as always.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just got to turn your brain off.
Yes.
And it actually comes from your stomach. It's called fear. And you gotta turn the fear, those butterflies, into excitement. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we all got to turn our brains off and just act. I know it's hard because fear drives a lot of our behavior.
Mm-hmm. But you said this maybe 9 years ago, and you said, you think it's fear, make sure it's excitement because your brain can't tell the difference.
Exactly.
You said this to me a long time ago, so it's still relevant. I'd love for you to tell our audience about you.
Awesome. Happy to. And, you guys tell me how deep you guys want to go. But
we want all the details.
So, long and short, I went to an incredible college in Oakland, California called Mills College. It was a private women's college, and I sought it out because it had this amazing experimental art program. So growing up, my father was an engineer, was an entrepreneur, and my mother was an artist. And so I had both left and right. Growing up, my dad would force me to do math games and math programs, and my mom would walk around the block with a shoebox, pick up trash around and say, now I want you to go to the house and make a diorama. So it was complete left and right brained. The reason why I decided to go to Mills was I loved electronics. So I built my own instruments, growing up, me and my dad was a pianist. And so I got into electronics and I studied art. What I loved about art school was that it taught you about Uber collaboration. In the kind of work that I was doing, which was experimental art, working with musicians, I was doing a lot of video art, working with technology, installation art. I had to work with the math, teams. I had to work with the dancers. So I really learned about Uber collaboration, how to bring teams together. That was one thing I learned, which I'm not sure you always learn in college.
No.
The second thing I really learned was about critique. And critique is a word you don't usually hear in business, but it's a very common word in the art world. And it is about giving feedback and brutal feedback. So basically in art school, you have to come up with an idea from nothing. So it's very entrepreneurial, right? You got to build it. And as you're building it for about a year, you have to present that work as your thesis to whatever your art head, department head, whatever in school, and they give you feedback. Basically, everybody tears apart your work for an entire year until you present your work. It builds a lot of grit.
Yes.
I was very independent, was very creative, and I'll fast forward a little bit. It wasn't my first job. But probably the big pivotal, part of my career after going to art school was I started working for Kodak. And Kodak, it wasn't actually always Kodak. The company I worked for was called Ophoto. And a lot of people, I'm going to date myself, don't remember Ophoto, but Ophoto was acquired by Kodak. But Ophoto was really the beginning of cloud. And so what we did was it was digital photographs. It was taking your photos from the first digital phones and you would put it in the cloud and you would, print pictures or you would share photos. And I was sending emails to every American in the United States. Like,
Whoa.
there's probably not one person at that time in the early 2000s that did not receive an email from me. This was in the early days without GDPR. And there were two databases that had the largest. Remember, email was still new. So it was Blockbuster and Ophoto.
That's right.
The shift in my career happened when I saw a job out of New York with a company, tiny company called Bluewolf, that was looking for CRM expertise and marketing. And I was like, oh, in New York? Oh, okay. So I reached out and I talked to Eric Berridge.
Wow.
Honestly, the rest is history around that. I mean, I had already been working with Salesforce. It's probably one of the first admins on Salesforce back in the late 1999, early 2000s. And just seeing Salesforce on there, I knew this company was doing good things. So I literally go home to my partner, who I'm still with today, Ryan, and I was like, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to go all in with this tiny company because these people are amazing.
And they see the vision.
That moment was fear. The amount of risk early on in your career to go from something that I was rising the ranks, I had high success, this company was doing very well, I was, briefing the CEO and I was in my early 20s, to quitting my job and doing something completely different that was even more of a startup, took a lot of curiosity and grit for me to just do it. I don't think people do that enough early on in their careers.
Can you make it practical?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people ask me, I had like 6 people come up to me saying, I want to talk about my career progression. I'm like, okay, break it down for our audience. You see an opportunity and the market is tough right now. How do you reach out? How do you stand out?
I came to New York for an interview and I left my jacket on purpose. So I had a next step.
I love that. Okay.
So I'd say, hey, Eric, if he didn't respond, I left my jacket. I'm going to have to, I left a little bit of a carrot or something as a leave behind.
Yep.
And so, that was one thing I think that helped me stand out. But I think it was pretty clear when I came to New York that there was an opportunity. But they offered me a job, and I turned it down.
Okay, why?
It's a longer conversation, but, I wasn't convinced that what was being offered at that moment was what I really wanted. And
was it the title? Was it monitor? Everything.
Everything.
Okay.
I said, no, thank you. And I said, but let's keep in touch. So probably about a month later, Eric reaches out to me and he's like, I got this thing called Dreamforce. I need your help. So I spun up my own business. I said, well, I got a client.
Yeah.
So I started my own company and I said, okay, you can hire me as a contractor. Here's
my contract.
Here's my contract.
This is my rate to you.
Yes.
Okay, love that.
So we did that Dreamforce. I forget which one it was, but it was one of the first. And it was, we stood out more than anybody. So we could go into a long story, but it was very unique. And right after Dreamforce, Eric says, hey, meet me for, breakfast at Hotel Vitale, which was the place to go in San Francisco.
It was the place.
It was.
Yes.
And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So how it turned about there was... I left my coat, we kept going, but I declined. I wasn't ready to give in to that. And I think it just built a lot of trust. And he knew that I wasn't a pushover, right? And so, that started a beautiful relationship. That started an incredible part of my career. I built everything from scratch. I was, human number one as the CMO. I ran alliances. I ran marketing services business. I started new service lines. I worked to expand our global offices. I mean, working at Bluewolf, and I'm sure you've hear a lot about people, that company was special and the people were special. And we grew that business for 15 years and sold it to IBM in 2016. So incredible, happenstance. But that was a very long time. Not a lot of people stay at a company as long as I did.
Yeah.
Now, I was a invested partner there.
Of course.
But, taking that chance early on in my career, I always advise people to, don't be afraid. Everything's going to work out.
Let me summarize, because you dropped a ton of nuggets in there, which might not seem big to you, but they're very big. So step number one, if you see the job you want, go for it. That's just table stakes. Step number two, leave a carrot. Make it your own. Whether it's a jacket, whether it's a unfinished something, so that there is a something to go after. Step number three, which I think is really important and everyone fears, when it's not the right fit for you, don't burn the bridge. Stand tall behind what you believe you deserve. Walk away, but leave a good impression.
Oh my God, look at all those insights.
This is all you. This is all you. And step number four, when the opportunity comes up, jump on it, put the best foot forward, and then you never know what will happen. And it could be a career of 15 years.
And best friends.
What are the three things in your bag today? You don't have to take it out. That you're traveling.
Can I show you?
Yeah, I'd love to see it. That helps you thrive through the day when you're on the road.
All right, I'll do that. Well, one is my phone.
Of course.
I mean, hello. This is more for fun.
Okay. I'm excited.
So I got to go in. I always bring small bags, but I would say these.
Eye patches.
Patches. I wear them on the plane. People think I'm crazy.
It's
the point on the eye patch, though, is here's the reality. I'm on the road, meeting with customers. I'm tired sometimes, but you know what? I love it.
Yep.
I put my eye patch on. I'm ready to go.
Yep.
But this is more about grit.
Yep.
Right. What else I can say? Well, I'm in New York City right now, and it's very cold, and so I need my gloves.
Leather
gloves.
But you're always very stylish. So
yes,
is this from France?
These are Ralph Lauren.
Okay.
So
they're local.
They're local. But yeah, my phone, my eye patch. Hey, why not?
Amazing. What are the top things we should be keeping in mind to be productive with AI day to day?
I'm going to come around to productivity. I am honored to work with IBM in AI. The more I have worked with IBM and been in this role, I have felt incredibly proud for the history of a 100-year-old tech company, American 100-year-old tech company, and the backbone of the world that they provide and the innovation they've provided around AI. And so I have a unique perspective now that is very global, very industry broad. And there's one thing I think that Arvind, our CEO, recently said that really struck with me and I think might be good for everybody to hear. Two things. Number one is, can you guess back in 1900 how many people, percentage of the U.S. population worked in agriculture?
It was a very
1900.
Yeah, 40%.
Oh my God, you
Did I
are
guess?
right. 40%. Some could say it's higher.
Mm-hmm.
It was higher if you go below 1900, but let's just say 1900, 40%.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what it was in 1980?
It dropped to maybe 15, maybe less.
3%.
Wow. Okay.
That was 1980.
Wow.
So think about that for a second. Do we not have food? What happened to all those jobs? What did they do?
Yeah.
The reality is that AI will probably take all of our jobs in some form or function of what we do today, in some function. And that's okay. And I'll talk to you about how I use AI every day. But the reality is it is here. It is coming. It is now. And, we can be afraid or we cannot be afraid. And I think I love that agriculture example because it's so true. We evolve, we adapt, we integrate.
Yeah.
What I hear a lot around, our jobs today is that you're not going, your job might not be replaced today with AI, but your job will be replaced by people who know how to use AI.
Yes.
And so I think we all are trying to figure out how to inject AI in our lives right now. I think you've got to put those tools, if you want to drive more productivity, you got to put the tools and figure out how to put them in your business. Like, I do think that IBM is probably one of the most advanced large enterprises in the world to have applied AI to its workforce. So I'll give you just two examples. So we are Salesforce's largest Slack customer in the world, and Slack is the glass for most of our agents. And so I go, and I don't have all the data points here, but they're all available online if you want to see, but we had a major transformation in our HR department. I have no HR person that I go to at IBM,
How?
and we have hundreds of thousands of employees. I go to Slack and I have an agent, and it's Ask HR. And it's all integrated with all our back-end systems. Hey, I want to promote Olga. I chat with my agent. It asks me questions. It does it all in Workday for me. Does it all in SuccessFactors now.
Does it do exceptions? Or does it follow the
So
structures and...
Yeah, so if there's anything that's unique, and of course we have unique,
Of course.
things that happen. If there's an emergency, there's in the agent, it's like, if you have an emergency, click here.
Wow.
It goes right to our, an HR team that's centralized that gets a ticket. I get a call within an hour.
Wow.
That's just one example. Another great example is things like Ask Incentives. So we rolled out an Ask Incentives. So, how many thousands and thousands of salespeople want to know, how much am I going to get paid this quarter?
Yes.
Where am I to my plan?
Yes.
I don't have to go look at something. I ask my agent, how am I doing? How's my team doing? I mean, it's amazing. I was a little nervous, to be frank, in the beginning, like, oh my God, we not have HR. What are we going to do? This is going to be a night.
Yes.
I prefer to go through the agent.
Really?
I prefer to do everything through the agent. Yes, it's driven my productivity. It's driven our bottom line so we can invest in innovation in our business. And I think that's just going to be a trend after trend.
If you can tell me a story that comes to mind that'll help our audience understand your resiliency, because I've seen it, and how you stick with your intuition and you drive towards what you believe. What comes up to you?
So what's going to come up to me now? I probably wouldn't have told this story a few years ago. I didn't have the story a few years ago, but to me, this has really been transformational in my life around resiliency. So, I have been a very career-focused woman my whole life. Like, I don't know how. It's got to be in my DNA, but like, I used to always say, and it's probably the worst analogy, but I could sell anything. I could sell toilets on the side of the street. I just love talking to customers, trying to solve their problem. And that's where I get my energy. And so I've really just loved, my career. And I didn't really put my personal life at the forefront. And I blink and I'm in my 40s. And I've always wanted to be a mom. And I've been with my partner for 20 years. And
He's been to one of the panels.
Yes.
Yes.
I wouldn't be here without him. So, of course, I'm going to give him a big shout out to Ryan Kobza. But so we decided we wanted to have kids. And that was really a big decision for both of us because he's older than I am. I was in my 40s. And, of course, it wasn't easy. You spend most of your life trying not to get pregnant. And, then you're like, okay, I want to have kids. And, oh, whoa, you're a woman. It's not that easy. So we went through IVF. And I was so thankful that in that first round of IVF, we have now our daughter who's almost 4 years old, Skylar. And it was amazing and really happy. And, IBM is an amazing company for women and, very supportive of me. But then I decided I want to have another child. I want to have a sibling. And long and short of it, I'm going to fast forward a little bit to about a year ago when I was sitting in a hospital bed with my partner, with tubes all over, with the doctor telling him, I think you should call her parents because we're not sure she's going to make it.
Oh my God. I have goosebumps.
I was pregnant with twins, identical twins, and I got sepsis. And I lost my twins, and I almost lost my life. That is impounding on the fact that I was pregnant a year before that, and I had a stillbirth. So the last several years of my life, Olga, my whole life has been about my career. And then I wanted to have a family, and that dream was very difficult for me. And it really I had to look in the mirror. And one of the things that I've always said to women, and now I say it even more, is I do really feel strongly that no one, not a single man or woman in my entire career, had a conversation with me about family planning and about the difficulties of managing pregnancy later in life. And so one of the real pieces of advice that I give to women in their careers is that do not wait to have those conversations. You will find that many women, career women, either, some don't want, great, but if they wanted to, they were kind of like me. And I'm lucky that I was able to have my daughter. I know many women that finally thought they could have it all, and when they went to try to have children, it didn't work for them. So I do tell a lot of women now, do have conversations about family planning. Have your children early or freeze your eggs, because, it's not going to be easy to have a career and have children if you wait.
How do you stop and think about it? And how do you have that conversation with yourself?
One, I would call out all managers right now who are women and men who have young women on there. And obviously it might not feel correct to talk about family planning, but, being able to be supportive and open those dialogues when you guys are at, your SKO kickoffs and you're having private or, more, one-on-one conversations with your boss or manager where you feel comfortable. But if you're the manager, maybe you can bring it up in some way, and to just open the dialogue, because the reality is no one brought it up with me. And now I bring it up with every woman I speak with early in their career and say, have you thought about this? And they all say, I'm not sure I want to have kids. I'm not sure. Okay, well, get eggs frozen. You're good. Decide not. No problem. I definitely want to have kids. Okay, well, make sure you work on that plan. Your career will be okay.
How do you remove that fear?
It's hard. I think it's, I think when you're young, you're just trying to you've got all this, inertia from your family around success and going to college and what we pump into you. But the reality is we're all humans on this planet. And one of the things, AI has yet to replace is how to produce other humans. And so there's room for it all. And, I think, there's room. And
I want to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm having this conversation with myself right now. My husband is in his 40s. He's about to be 40. I just got married. Well, I've been married for 3 years. And we're talking about kids. And I know I want to have kids, but I also cannot imagine with my job today, with the responsibilities I have, stepping away for a year. And I have this, and I have a sister who is 12. And I've seen what it takes. My mom had a C-section, and I was there for the first few months taking full care of my sister because my mom just needed help. And that was the best birth control for a while for me because I knew what it would be. So I'm having a hard time to say, okay, I am 35 years old. It is time. It is time to do it. And yet I am having a very hard time in my head to say, I will have to walk away from my job and slow down.
You don't. I think that's the biggest lie women tell themselves. And first of all, the minute you go on the journey, that all fades away, Olga. it all fades away. You won't even think about it. Everybody says this, and I'm not trying to promote pregnancy here.
But this is an important conversation.
I'm not trying to. I am totally good. If I know, I have a lot of women friends who don't have kids and men,
and they don't want it,
yes,
and that's totally the
fine.
choice.
I'm not trying,
yes.
but listen. They always say, and this is like a dialogue I've had with my mom friends. No one knows how much being a parent will change your life until you have your kids. Mm-hmm. And the minute you have your baby, everything changes. Everything. And it's my priorities changed. And you know what? My career never hurt. My career's only gotten better. Mm-hmm. So let me tell you what happened. 10 days I was in the hospital with sepsis. And 2 weeks I was out of the hospital. It's a longer story, but I was, recovering from surgery after I lost my twins, and Dreamforce was coming up. And this was not last year, but the year before. And I've been at 20 Dreamforces, I think probably too many. And I was speaking, and I just got out of the hospital 2 weeks ago. So everybody's like, cancel her sessions. Who's going to fill it? I said, I'm going to be there. And it was hard for me to be there. I was, physically recovering, but it was important to me to get back. And it wasn't like I was feeling stressed by work to do it. I wanted to get my head back in the game. I didn't want it to bring me down. And I love my job.
Yes.
I love what I do. And so I went to Dreamforce, and one of the best things about it was I told people what I was going through. And, the Salesforce community is a wonderful community, and known people for 20 plus years. And everybody was there to support me. And, IBMers, Bluewolfers, all these people I've known for many years. And it actually helped me be there. So yes, I was there for work, but I think part of why I needed to be there was I needed to be with people to tell me it's going to be okay.
Corinne, keep me honest. I feel like it started with a really good intention.
Yeah.
And then it became like a isolation. And I think Eric did an amazing job when he came to support every single panel when we did them around Dreamforce, and you had him come and be an ally. How do we do a better job at not separating and doing, we're better over here, we're women, we're stronger than men? It doesn't do us any favors.
No.
How do we continue to create allies?
Allies.
Yes.
They're out there everywhere. Every man is a father, a brother, a son. And there are tons of allies out there. I mean, honestly, if you look at my career, most of my mentors, now I'm lucky I have also a female mentor, but most of my mentors have been men. And, I think, thank God for those men,
Mentors and sponsors.
Oh, sponsors too.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Both mentors and sponsors.
Yes.
And so, I think that, and understanding the difference of those roles, I think is really important. That's probably another topic, but
you taught me that difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. You tell our audience.
Yeah. So, a mentor is really somebody that's going to provide, feedback for you on your career, really, somebody you can go to bounce ideas off, to get feedback. Somebody's going to quote unquote mentor you. And those people might be sponsors, but sponsors is an active role. Okay. So it is about, and I do this, I have about 4 key sponsors, individuals that I sponsor. I mentor a lot more, but I have about 4 individuals that I sponsor. And so what do? Being a sponsor is not just mentoring them, it's actively inserting them in the conversation. So for instance, this week we had IBM's top, I think there's 100 accounts in the world here in New York City. And one of the leaders of a business unit where I'm sponsoring an employee I made sure to go up to her. He works, and it's a male, not a female. He works for this woman. She's the senior, and he's several layers behind. And but she knows who he is, and I made sure to bring him up and say, hey, when's this person, blah blah, and brought his name. That's all I need to do.
Yes, it creates a light bulb. Creates a moment.
It's about inserting that individual in the conversation, bringing them up. That's what I do as a sponsor. I insert them. I recommend them.
Yep.
If I hear about a role, I say, hey, look at this. So that is an active sponsor role versus just a mentor role.
Yeah, I usually think about it, and I think you described it to me, where when there's a planning session and the executives are gathering around a table and they're talking about initiatives and certain projects and not business as usual stuff, which could be business as usual, but in those cases where it's unknown of who could take this on, and it creates a task force, right? It creates like a pod of who can actually take this on and execute. And that's an opportunity for many people to nominate people that are not in the rooms.
Yes.
And that's how I think of these. And in my experience, 95% of those people were male. And this is why I feel so passionate about, yes, women are incredible human beings. We do so much. And I will say I can multitask way better than my husband. His brain cannot compete. He said something to me that was so funny. He goes, if you put AI in your head, that AI will give up because you just cannot keep up with your brain. But I just want to make sure that we continue to build what you're doing is exactly the example of it, and I did the same thing this morning for a guy, is to continue to become allies and not separating each other. I think that's so important, and I've seen it gone wrong. Even though there's so many women networks being spun up, I've been in so many conversations where I'm not comfortable where it's bashing men.
Yeah. I don't see that a lot. I really don't. I see... and like I said, I sponsor men and women, right? I think we all need an opportunity.
Talent.
You sponsor talent. But, I'm part of Chief. I'm very active in women's programs because, the reality is they do need some support. The reality is there is bias. And you could say, what's happening in the, global trends right now. And, let's see what the impacts are going to be, right?
Yeah.
So now more than ever is a great opportunity to be an ally. We need it more than ever. And we all have to, do our part to support, that next generation. And yeah, I mean, I've been supported, my whole career, and, I love mentoring, sponsoring. I sit in, when I go into the office in San Francisco, I sit with the developers sometimes because, and they're young. We have, like a young group there. I love sitting with them. And I'm not saying that I'm not old, but I sit with them. One, they tell me everything that's going on. Like I've probably learned more about, what new innovations coming by just sitting next to them. But, they also love, they're like, nobody comes and none of our executives come over here and sit with us.
Yep.
And I'm like, I love it.
Yeah. That's
really
where you learn.
do. Yeah.
You learn, you know what's happening in the field.
Yeah.
And you love being in the field. So I'm not surprised that you want to keep learning.
Yeah.
Well, speak to me about younger generation building the relationships that turn into mentors and sponsors. We are in hybrid work, some remote, so it's a bit different now. So how would you advise people to, as they're starting their careers or in the middle of their careers, mentors just sounds like, hey, can you be my mentor? And, it needs to be a bit natural. So tell us, what is your advice about building mentors, and how do you find sponsors?
I think with the whole hybrid work now, it's really it's been hard, right? If you don't have that water cooler, you don't have that, rub shoulders, I think you've got to, and I've always said that, I've probably said this to you. It's just like, why are you afraid to reach out to that executive? Reach out. We have a process at IBM no one knew about, and it's called an executive interview.
Interesting.
So everybody I tell who's new to IBM, I'm like, go do an executive interview with anybody you want to, get to know. You put it on their calendar, you work with their EA, and you call it an EA, an executive or EI, executive interview.
Yeah.
And you get 30 minutes. I think I did like 30 of those.
Amazing.
And I tell everybody, do it. Do it. Ask for the meeting. If you're working in a company, what's the worst thing that could happen if the head of sales or the COO or whatever, the CMO, what's the worst thing that they could say? No, I don't want to meet with one of my employees.
Right? Then you're in the wrong company.
Right. But most of the time, somebody will make the time.
Yeah.
And that is the proactiveness that you have got to take. It is up to you. You have got to be marketing and selling. And it sounds, I don't think those are bad words. Some people do, but you've got to be marketing and selling yourself all the time and building networks. And I never have had a problem doing that. And I know that is part of my success, right? Is, the minute you get to know me, the minute, I can pitch an idea to you, you get it. And so I think, you need those at-bats. So go get the at-bats. If you want to find a mentor, go reach out to where you're interested in building your career. Get on their calendar.
But I think that's step one.
Yes.
Step two is preparation.
Yes.
Because I've seen, oh my God, the number of messages I get on LinkedIn is, can I get on your calendar to talk about?
LinkedIn is tough because that's really cold. Like, I'm not big on taking cold LinkedIn. If you're in my company, yeah, I'm going to be much more interested. Yeah. Right. So maybe the advice to people is maybe cold LinkedIn mentor, interviews is not the best approach. Start where you are, start in the company that you are. And
build that muscle.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people within your company that you can build a network and a mentorship relationship. Even if you move to another company, you're going to have that relationship from the previous company. Yeah. So I'm not sure the LinkedIn piece is the best approach.
The way I've seen it work, and I moved recently. I lived in California. I lived during pandemic, met my husband, moved to Minnesota, and then I just moved to Florida 9 months ago. And I realized I didn't have any friends. Both I really want to be inspired, and Nina Harding is and I haven't had time to spend time with her, but I think the cold approach, just going back to that, is if you build an internal network who is connected externally, that's the warmest introduction you can get.
Absolutely.
And that's how I met an amazing group of women in South Florida.
I think that's the right approach is, can you use someone maybe that's, and use that to get an introduction. Yes. Right. And we use LinkedIn for that a lot. Right. Yeah. And so I get a lot of those too. But honestly, if somebody reaches out to me on LinkedIn and I know who they are and they say, hey, can you meet this person? I know that they've found that we're connected on LinkedIn. Yeah. And I'm fine with it though. Yeah. I'm fine with it because the person that I'm connected to is taking a risk.
Of course.
To introduce me, and I'll do it for that person. Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Of course.
I'm going to tell the story. And again, if she hears this, I love you, Joanne. So I was in New York. I think I had just had my daughter. Actually, I just had my daughter. And I was in New York and I reached out to her EA and I said, hey, and I was in Manhattan and she's in Armonk. So it's kind of a drive to get up to our office in Armonk. And I reached out to her EA. I said, hey, is there any chance that I can get a meeting with Joanne and meet her face to face? I was on the council, but I had never met her one-on-one. This is the beginning. And she's like, can you be here by 7:30 in the morning?
Wow.
I left here at 4. I got on a car and I went, I think it was either Armonk or one of our other offices up there. And I mean, I went all the way up there because she had this little 15-minute meeting and I got face to face with her. And that was how we built our relationship. That was the beginning. But
Do you remember what was the conversation?
of course, it was, I just got back. I just had my child and trying to figure it out, and, told her about my past and, my entrepreneurship. And,
Yeah.
she was just amazing,
Yeah.
and it was very obvious right at that moment that, she was just amazing, and we had a good connection. And so, I stayed connected with her. But part of it was me getting on a car, getting on her calendar.
Yes.
And she only had 15. And, sometimes you're going to have to do that,
Yep.
and there's nothing like face to face.
Yes.
Right.
That's where you build the connection. Sponsors. Those are the people that advocate for you in the rooms, but you have to be very specific with them on what you want.
I think with sponsors, one of the things I think is important to realize that it takes time to get a sponsor. When I sponsor someone, it's because I feel confident that, by sponsoring something, your name is attached to that person.
You're risking.
You're risking.
Yeah.
And so, for me, when I sponsor someone, it's definitely going to be someone that I know.
Yeah.
That have built a relationship with me.
And you've seen their work.
And I've seen their work, and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Probably could write a book about this, but one of the things that I've seen is that ruthless prioritization is really hard to do, because there is this concept that I like to call, which is like the simplicity of complexity. So what does that mean? The simplicity of complexity. It is much easier for you in business to spread your bets. Okay? What does that mean? When you spread your bets, that's what a lot of people do. They take on more projects. They put budget here and a little here, and they want to do multi-geos, and they want to do this or whatever, right? They spread their bets. What they're doing is they're trying to de-risk their decision. Because they know that maybe one of those will work out. But what happens is you're spread too thin. You don't have enough money to really support that business case. And what's really the hardest thing to do is to take risk
and go all in.
It's not easy. It actually is hard to be simple. That's why I always say the simplicity of complexity. Complexity is easier to do than to be simple, right? In your plan, in your focus, in your budget. So I do think, ruthless prioritization for leaders and really understanding, and communicating that strategy, that North Star, really drives speed and execution more than I've ever seen.
So these are your 3 rules to thrive.
Yeah.
Ruthless prioritization, curiosity,
and grit.
Let's talk about what is the most powerful career advice you've ever received, and what's the worst?
The worst advice that someone very senior told me that I wasn't ready for a role. And I listened. Trust me, I'm not saying, you just bulldog everybody. If you hear, I know how to take feedback. I went to art school. I know critique. I didn't trust his feedback. And you know what? He was wrong. I not only got the job, I didn't get that job, I got a better one.
That's the best. That's the best feeling in the world.
And I think he was a little shocked. And I'm thriving, always thriving.
I love that.
I would say the best advice, I have so many nuggets from Eric Berridge. I've always told Eric he needs to write a book, but one of many, but I'll give one. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten, or that Eric instilled, was pick up the phone. I love that. Like, okay, in this Slack world, in this, email world, whenever there's conflict, whether it's interpersonal, whether it's with a client, you got to get on the phone. In person too. This is not a time to go over emails. Get on a phone.
Yep.
Pick up the phone.
Yep.
That's probably the best advice.
I think there's so much that gets lost in translation. That's literally
And people wallow and go back and forth. Don't do it. Get on the phone.
what about when you're negotiating your next offer for a promotion or your next offer within the role? How do you approach it? Because I think a lot of people right now come to me with a scarcity mindset.
Right now.
So I think I want to figure out a balance of you knowing what you're worth, understanding the market. How do you approach
I think a lot of people don't ask for it. They, again, it's been a while, but, I think when you, are looking for that next job, let's say it's in your own company, right? And you're just looking for a promotion, they're always going to tell you, it's a lateral or it doesn't come with a band change or whatever it is, or a, new salary. But you got to ask for it. I think a lot of people get offered a job and they just take it, versus saying, well, tell me more about it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places to negotiate in this market right now, whether it's stock, if you're in a large stock company, whether it's, vacation time, whether it's, I'm just brainstorming here, but there's tons of things that you can negotiate, whether it's RTO, whether it's, a plan to get you to the promotion. Okay. So you're not ready to give me money now, but can we come up with, 3 major goals that you want me to achieve in 6 months that gets me to that?
Yep.
Can we look at that?
Yeah.
Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Can we, commit to some sort of path? I think you have to do the work to, have those negotiation conversations. I think it's uncomfortable for people to negotiate. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a negotiation in almost every conversation that I have.
When is the right time? So you're on the job. Is it the cycles? When do you bring it up? Do you bring it up earlier? What have you seen work from your team asking you for the next step?
I am looking for, leaders, and I'm looking for success in their work. A promotion or a raise is not something you get just by being in a role for a year.
Yep.
Right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
it's not a given.
It's not a given. What is consistent across the board is standing out and having real success. Right? Like being able to showcase that success. I think you also have to be much more visible. If I'm the decider of a promotion for somebody that is reporting, if I have to, if I'm the decision maker and I don't know that person, I'm not going to have a lot of visibility into their success. So you're going to want to have a lot of visibility if you're trying to get a promotion. Right. And network, way ahead. Don't just, okay, here's the cycle. Let me go ask for my promotion. You need to be working towards that promotion. Yeah. It's a sales cycle. Right?
Absolutely. And I've seen so many people tell me, because I mentor, people that are early in their careers, saying, well, I just, want to keep my head down, do my work, and then, get the raise. And no, it doesn't work that way. Just doing your job is not enough. In my opinion, you have to raise your hand for things that are important to the organization. You have to understand what's important to the organization. To your point, you have to be visible. And if you raise your hand, you have to circle back on what you've done. And show results. What can we do at our level, an individual level, to do something good for the world? So if you could think of a nonprofit that
I'm going to talk about the nonprofit that I'm part of, which is the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in San Francisco. And so I think you're starting to see a theme here. So I'm a big believer in the arts. And I think culturally, we need the arts more than ever right now. And, I think I would take my team sometimes to the MoMA or to galleries to drive creative ideas, right? And, I think art is a expression of our culture at its time. And I'm a big believer in supporting artists. San Francisco gave a living wage to artists to support the art community, especially during COVID. And we need, art in our lives. We need to connect with ourselves, with our bigger thoughts. And, my ask for everybody is to go visit your local museums.
I love that.
Go support your local museums. They need it. And art and culture is critical, and it's who we are as humans, and it's what we really leave behind.
And it's not even just for the museum, it's for you too.
Yes.
It will empower you to tap into your creativity.
Yep.
Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you, Olga.
I can't
What a
believe
pleasure.
it. Thank you for being on Rules to Thrive.
Thank you so much.